The scene opens with heavy, exhausted gasps. Ha! Ha! A girl with wavy pink hair trembles as she clutches the bedsheet, muttering in sheer exhaustion, I... it's too much. But the man has no intention of stopping. He sinks his teeth into her shoulder, drawing a pained groan from her. Mm. In her dazed state, she softly calls out his name. Erik. The two are tangled together on the bed in an intimate embrace. The black-haired man grips her waist firmly while she stares at him with wide, trembling eyes, barely able to endure any more. Moments later, summoning what little strength she has left, she grabs his hand tightly and shouts in anger, "You bastard!" In an instant, she springs out of bed, fleeing from the rumpled sheets and rushing toward the door. Her trembling hand reaches for the wooden handle, but before she can escape, thump! A loud crash echoes through the room as Erik catches up in an instant, pinning her against the door from behind. Ah! She gasps as he presses her firmly against the door, trapping her in place. Her entire body trembles uncontrollably, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. Leaning close to her ear, Erik whispers with a mocking undertone, "It won't be proper to head out dressed like this, would it, my lady?" Furious, she spins around, shoving against his chest and snapping, "It's all your fault." Her gaze shifts toward the window as panic washes over her. It's almost dawn, she realizes. At that moment, Erik locks eyes with her and quietly makes a demand. Once more, this is the last time. Hearing those words, she immediately fires back in frustration. Liar, that's what you said last time, and every time before that. Pushing firmly against his muscular chest, she declares, "I won't believe you anymore." Yet all her resistance proves futile. Erik immediately leans in, capturing her lips in a fierce, passionate kiss. Her eyes widen in shock as her hands instinctively clutch his shoulders. Lost in the deep kiss, she can only whisper helplessly in her mind, "Liar." As if he can read her thoughts, Erik responds with quiet possessiveness, "I know." Cut to the following morning on a sun-drenched balcony. Erik Lansmore sits calmly with a cup of tea, resting his chin on one hand, looking completely at ease. Seated across from him is the pink-haired girl. Watching his utterly carefree attitude, she can only let out a weary sigh, thinking to herself, "This insatiable man. The powerful man you just saw is my husband. But don't be fooled. Just 3 months ago, ours was a marriage in name only. That's right, it was nothing more than a strict contract marriage. It all began amid the brutal flames of war. In the year 1374, the king of the Orion Empire suddenly passed away without naming an heir. The empty throne threw the entire empire into chaos as rival factions fought relentlessly for power. Seizing the perfect opportunity, the neighboring kingdom of Elysia launched a full-scale invasion and swiftly annexed the empire's southern territory. The bloody conflict raged for 5 long years, claiming countless lives. However, the tide of war was completely turned by a young military genius. Grand Duke Erik Lansmore, just 23 years old at the time, personally led the imperial army to crush the enemy and finally bring the war to an end. On the day of his triumphant return, nobles and commoners alike lined the streets to welcome him home. Riding majestically atop his warhorse, he was celebrated as the empire's greatest hero. Yet beside him rode me, someone regarded as the empire's greatest disgrace. My name is Alexa Kalenda, the 3rd princess of the defeated kingdom of Elysia, and now, the most unwelcome spoil of war. Taken to a foreign land, I am forced to endure countless judgmental stares. At a royal gathering, as I was introduced to the empire's high-ranking officials, I could only tremble, nervously stammering, "Thank you for coming." In return for my humility, all I received were mocking sneers and whispered ridicule from the surrounding nobles. Standing in the middle of the magnificent palace, I realized I was nothing more than a lonely prisoner. The humiliation of a fallen princess is truly unbearable. In the middle of the grand banquet, Alexa finds herself surrounded by the nobles' malicious whispers and mocking laughter. They sneer behind her back, gossiping that she still isn't fluent in Orionese even after 3 years, blaming it on the poor education of her homeland. Alexa can only lower her head in shame, clenching her fists so tightly that her nails dig into her palms as she silently swallows her tears in the face of their cruel insults. But just when she feels completely helpless, Grand Duke Erik Lansmore appears. Striding forward with an imposing presence, he calls out her name. Erik informs her that her mother has arrived and that a servant has already escorted her to the guest parlor. With quiet consideration, he suggests, "You may head over while the banquet goes on." Relieved to escape the suffocating atmosphere, Alexa softly replies, "All right." Noticing his wife's pale expression and distressed demeanor, Eric's eyes instantly grow cold and dangerously sharp. He fixes the gossiping nobles with a piercing glare before demanding in an icy tone, "Did something happen?" Overwhelmed by the Grand Duke's intimidating presence, the nobles break into a cold sweat. Unwilling to cause a scene, Alexa quickly steps in, averting her gaze as she lies, "It was nothing." Erik watches her walk away, quietly murmuring with suspicion, "Is that so?" Alexa reminds herself that this is merely a political marriage arranged to secure a truce between their two nations. However, she couldn't have been more mistaken. At that moment, she had absolutely no idea that in just a few hours, everything between them would change completely, drawing them into a passionate and irresistible night together. How will this intense relationship unfold? Stay tuned for the next chapter.